Oh, halftime show. Terry Ford, David Dare hanging out with us for a little bit here on the game. 803-404-6100 is the Love Chevy phone line and Firehouse Sub text line. And as predicted, we have a bunch of bad cologne coming across the Firehouse Sub text line. We'll get to in our text of the hour, Dave. We'll save those. Bad cologne. Jeremiah Donati, the new athletic director at South Carolina, meeting with the media yesterday. And here is Donati, some interesting stuff in the presser. Here's Jeremiah Donati talking about the NIL philosophy at TCU. Is he bringing that with him, the same type of philosophy to South Carolina?
Yes and no. It's changing. And so what's going to be new for all of us is when revenue sharing hits. And so we know with that permissive cap, those rules will look very similar, right? $20.5 million, that's not going to change. So, I'll be really excited to sit down with our coaches and understand a little bit more of our plan here. I understand kind of the framework of it, but that's, we have a tremendous commitment from the university to do that. That says a lot about the commitment overall into athletics. And so I think the real key there is going to be, what does NIL look like? What is the traditional NIL that we thought we signed up for back in 2021? What does that look like when July 1st hits? And we have hopefully real NIL, and we've got the revenue sharing on the other side. So difficult to say right now. I'm going to spend a lot of time, in the coming weeks and months figuring out, how our collectives are working and, what other NIL support we can, because that will be critical. Traditional NIL support, if you will be will be incredibly important for our student athletes, and so we're going to be very aggressive there.
I mean, you got to be, right? Because you have to constantly look at the different streams of NIL and how you pull that revenue in. It's great when, people want to pay $100 a month and they constantly renew and constantly pay NIL and they, because they love the program. And that's fantastic. But how sustainable is that in the long run? Because at some point, somebody might say, got this car, my car payment's a lot more than it was, my electric bill's been crazy lately. I'm going to have to cut back my NIL. You don't know. Obviously, you need more NIL streams, whether you're looking at business partnerships or wherever you're going. Ticket prices. Tickets now, season tickets at a lot of schools are going to go up because the universities are looking to generate more revenue to go for the quote-unquote salary cap for college athletes or NIL. You're now paying NIL whether you want to or not because your ticket price went up. You could see what I think is, I think it's awful, but it's reality. You could start seeing the personal seat license business land in college football. If it's not already there. But now it would go in, and that would be how you get more money for NIL, is putting a personal seat license fee on a season ticket holder. And if you don't know what those are, I think they're terrible. You are paying for the right to own that seat. So I'm paying for my ticket. No. You pay for your ticket separate. You pay for the right to own that seat. Now, you can sell it. That's the way this used to be. Maybe it's going to change, or maybe it has changed. I haven't paid attention to PSL in a while. But the personal seat license is you pay for the right to have that seat. And now you pay for your tickets. That could start popping up for revenue generation regarding NIL or more revenue to pay student athletes. This stuff is coming in a lot of different ways. And you need a guy like this, like a Jeremiah Donati, who understands the lay of the land and can look at all the different possible revenue streams and how can you take what you did at TCU and apply it to South Carolina. I know. You hear this stuff and your head starts to explode. Here is Donati talking about adapting to South Carolina's ways versus bringing in new ideas to, again, help evolve this whole space for the university.
A great question. So, it's take a little time. There'll be an acclimation period just because I'm new to the state and I've got a whole new staff. And like you said, when I was promoted at TCU, a lot of those people I'd worked with, and so that'll take some time. But candidly, that's the fun part and getting to understand where everybody is. I mean, a big thing for me is really ensuring that the program is built for the future because, as I mentioned in my comments, it's changing so fast that I think every athletics department needs to make sure we're preparing for the next 5 to 10 years and not what we did the previous 5 to 10 years. So it'll take some time. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. I've got to get a chance to get to know all the coaches and student athletes, and I look forward to that. That's the fun part of it. So I asked them to be a little patient with me, but they'll see that I work really hard. And even though my family won't be with me in the spring, they're gonna finish out their school years. In some ways, that's a gift because I can spend a little more time developing those relationships, and so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, every situation's different. Every place is different. You just can't say, okay, here's a blueprint. I worked at TCU. I'm going to apply the same blueprint to South Carolina. Totally different deal. A totally different deal. The SEC to the Big 12, totally different deal. So it takes time. I mean, everybody wants everything now, right? Nobody wants to be patient anymore. But you got to lay down the foundation of how this moves forward. And it's all about the money, man. I know you're tired of hearing it. I'm tired of saying it. It's all about the money. We're going to talk about that more today with the conference championship games coming up tonight and this weekend. And about if this team wins, if this team loses, what happens here or there, or what. Remember, college football playoff games, they are TV shows. And you want the biggest ratings possible so you can charge the most money, make the most dough off of advertisers who also want to be part of a TV show that people are watching. All this is about money. Fairness, logic, It's all about how do we make money. And we will twist and turn whatever we got to twist and turn to be able to make the most money possible. Now, circling back to what's going on with new athletic director Jeremiah Donati, you have to recognize and realize that, got to find new revenue streams. Got to flip every rock we can to see, okay, how do we leverage this for financial gain? And that's where it's going. And again, like I said before, you just hope a Jeremiah Donati or any of the new age of athletic directors, you just hope they can get the coaching hires right or the coaching contract extensions right. Because, again, that's still, to me, that's kind of important in all this other stuff they have to do today when it comes to, finding dough, finding money. Well, here's some more Jeremiah Donati. Next segment will pop up. Is there an advantage to being in a true college town as opposed to being in Dallas-Fort Worth in the Metroplex? Where, not to be mean, TCU was about 7th in the pecking order. I mean, TCU, not even the most popular college football or basketball or college athletic program in Dallas-Fort Worth, where they're at. It's a total change coming here. So we'll hear Donati's thoughts on that coming back. And also, in case you just woke up, here's what happened in the sports world. We'll get to that next. Halftime show, Terry Ford and our buddy Captain Dave punching the buttons for us. We're rolling until 3 on the game.
Looks up, throws, touchdown to Gibbs.
Oh, there was the Lion touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs, one of many touchdowns last night in the Detroit-Green Bay game. Lions won with the game-winning field goal pretty much at the gun. But what everyone's talking about in that 34-31 Detroit victory was the Lions went forward 5 times on fourth down, made it 4. And they went for fourth downs everywhere. Their own 30-yard line. They were in Green Bay territory. But the one that really was that most folks are talking about was Detroit had 4th and inches on the Green Bay 21. It was 43 seconds left. Score was tied. And Dan Campbell said, screw it, we're going for it. And we're just going to choke out the rest of the clock and then kick the field goal. It worked. David Montgomery ran for, 7 yards. Jared Goff, though, tripped over his own feet, almost fell down, and that was almost a disaster. But Goff, as he was falling down, handed the ball off to Montgomery, and Montgomery got the first down. Lions insulted down the clock, I think 3 seconds, and then the game-winning field goal. I'm not going to lie. I'm kicking the field goal at 4th and inches with 43 seconds. I just am. I'm deep in Green Bay territory. The field goal's under 40 yards. Yeah, I get it. Green Bay's going to get the ball back with probably roughly 40 seconds left, 38 seconds, whatever. And my defense, which has been beaten and battered with injuries, has got to try to stop the Packers from going downfield to either kick the game-tying field goal or maybe win the game. I get that. I just, fourth down, I'm teed up for the game, for the go-ahead field goal. I'm probably taking the go-ahead field goal. But that's not what Dan Campbell and the Lions are about. Dan Campbell's, look, my defense is injured beyond belief. Already given up 31 points. Green Bay's got some weaponry on offense. I don't know if I can defend the field. We're going for it. Made it. And Green Bay never got the ball back. Ryan Clark made a great point today on ESPN where he said that what Dan Campbell did works for the Lions because of who Dan Campbell is. Dan Campbell's been this guy his entire tenure in Detroit. When the Lions stunk, they always went for it on fourth down. When the Lions became mediocre, they still went for it on fourth down. When the Lions last year popped and played in the NFC Championship game, they went for it on fourth down. That's who the Lions are under Dan Campbell. And that's their look. That we always throw this stupid I word around when it comes to teams or players. Identity, right? What's the Lions' identity? Screw you. Screw any logic or screw any old school thinking or even screw analytics. And we're going to do what we want to do when we want to do it. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to take the fight to you. We're going to bite your kneecaps, all that stuff. Going forward on fourth down the way Dan Campbell does just solidifies everything about Dan Campbell. And this team is totally bought in. Matter of fact, if Dan Campbell doesn't go for it, they probably all look at him and go, "What's up with you, Bob? What are we doing?" So for the Lions, Ryan Clark said that is the obvious strategy. For the other 31 teams in the NFL, kick the field goal. But that's who the Lions are. Now, is there a chance this massive uber aggressiveness on steroids is going to bite you in the tail at some point in the postseason? Yeah, it can. Could it change the outcome of a game because you go for it on fourth down and you don't make it? Sure it could. Absolutely. But it's who you are. And you ride and die with who you are. And that's who the Lions are. That was a great point by Ryan Clark. So Lions found a way to win. Jared Goff threw a bad pick. Green Bay came out and got themselves right back in the game. They took the lead after being down, I believe, 10. The Lions just find a way. They believe. And part of the fact that they believe is they believe in this coach. And the reason they believe in this coach is because he puts his foot on the gas and says, we can do anything. That's a massively confident football team that has true belief in themselves and the head coach. And what Dan Campbell did last night is part of who they are. Just is. 4 for 5 on fourth down. A couple times, 4th and goal, and they turned those into touchdowns. It was crazy last night. But the Lions beat the Packers, in case you just woke up. Also, in case you just woke up, South Carolina's women, they get the win over Duke last night at CLA. Chloe Kitts, a double-double. That's her 3rd this year, going 21-11. Dawn Staley postgame talked about Kitts.
Oh, Ray, that was all Ray. Ray called it in the first half, and then when we needed a bucket, she just went back to it and kept going back to it, and Chloe delivered. And she was due. She was due for a good one.
Yeah, she was good. She was good. And the South Carolina bench, again, was big. And they're just a deep team, a really deep team that can come at you in waves. And Malaysia Fawali last night, not her best evening. 1 of 7 from the floor, hit a free throw. She didn't have her best night, but that's okay because South Carolina, the depth of this basketball team, Tahina Pau hit a couple threes in the first quarter. South Carolina got up huge early. And then Duke chipped away, outscoring South Carolina 22-13 in the fourth quarter, but by that time the lead was just too big. Gamecocks wrapped 51 on Duke. They were up 51-31. They have, I think, up by 25 for the most part. Shot the lights out, too. 57% from the floor, 50% from 3, even 74% from the line. Joyce Edwards, 8 off the bench. Ashlyn Watkins, 6. Maddie McDaniel, who will get a cut from Dawn Staley about later, scored 7 to go with 3 steals. Tessa Johnson, 6. Again, Fawali struggled, did score 3. Just balanced scoring everywhere. Fagan and Pau both scored in double digits with 11. Just a good offensive night for South Carolina. Yeah, Duke got back in the game late third, fourth quarter. Down, I believe, 8 at one point. But South Carolina wins by 11, 81-70. Gamecocks now 8-1. And bounced back pretty nice after the UCLA loss on the road. All right, Jeremiah Donato, the new athletic director, talking to the media yesterday. You heard it, most of it here on 107.5 The Game in Columbia. Let's get this cut, Dave. Again, Donato at TCU in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, where, it's a big city. Sports fans there, let's see, their top 3 favorite teams there are the Dallas Cowboys, and the Dallas Cowboys. Then you have the Dallas Mavericks went to the NBA Finals last year. Texas Rangers won the World Series a couple years ago. Dallas Stars have gone deep in the Stanley Cup playoffs multiple times. University of Texas is the favorite college football team in town. A&M is probably second. So you see TCU not that high up on probably a lot of sports fans' radar in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, even though that's where they're at. So here is an answer from Jeremiah Donato about is there an advantage of being in a true college town like Columbia as opposed to Dallas-Fort Worth?
Maybe. We'll see. I think so. I think, I'm really looking forward to getting on the road and seeing the areas around here and getting to know where our fan bases are and kind of what's on their mind. But you're right. As I was flying in last night, it occurred to me just how vast this area is spread out. And so, it's really neat to be in such a college town. Fort Worth's a college town, but it's very different, as you said. I think Fort Worth's the 13th biggest state in the country. Someone made the point to me that a short while ago here that the university used to build into the city, and now the city builds into the school. And so the city of Columbia really is the University of South Carolina. It's pretty neat. So I haven't had that opportunity. I grew up in Pullman, Washington, which is at a much smaller scale. So to answer your question, it's fun to see. I mean, I met 30 people walking around town today, and they're all wearing garnet and black. It was almost like they were kind of staged, kind of released them, And so that was, in fact, the very first person I met last night recognized me and wanted to have a conversation about NIL and what we were going to be doing for some of our players. So Coach Beamer will talk afterwards, but I'm looking forward to being in a true college town and just jumping right in.
And it's massively different because obviously the folks here care a ton about South Carolina. And there is no pro sports. So, yeah, it's a whole different vibe. So, Jeremiah Donato, good luck. But, yeah, it's just, again, this is where the world is going. And Donato, with his skill set, the hope is he can carry South Carolina into this new world of players getting paid by the university, NIL, and all these other things that go into the landscape. Hopefully, South Carolina got the right guy in Jeremiah Donato. Tonight, Love Chevy High School Football Scoreboard Show 9 to 11 playoff version with Justin Hall and Elijah Campbell. Again, that is 9 o'clock right here on the game. They'll go through all the playoff games in the state, the Midlands, and that is tonight. Again, Love Chevy High School Football Scoreboard Show 9 to 11 on the game. All right. Firehouse Sub Text the Hour is next, 803-404-6100. We got some bad, smelly cologne to talk about, Dave. That's coming up next. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Captain Dave helping out right here on the game. We're going to get our Firehouse Sub text hour. We'll have some more cuts from Jeremiah Donati, the new athletic director, here in just a little bit. Some interesting stuff from Donati that we want to get to, like his pitch to South Carolina in the hiring process, and also being open and transparent with the fan base and what sold them on South Carolina. So we have some Donati stuff we want to get to here in just a little bit. In the 1 o'clock hour, we do football. But let's get the important stuff, Dave, on the Firehouse Sub text line. We're talking about bad cologne somehow. I don't know how we got that conversation. I'll blame you. And we talked about men's skin bracer, and you brought up, what was the other one you brought up?
Club Man.
Yeah, Club Man.
Aquabella.
On the text line, High Karate.
High Karate, which came with instructions about how to fight off
the women.
girls when
Remember the commercials? The guy like being just like standing in a store and all of a sudden, "Hi, and he's like fighting off all the women because he smells so good.
Why would you fight them off?
I don't understand that either. Why isn't that why you're wearing it?
Yeah.
You're fighting them off. A High Karate. We talked about Jovan sex appeal. I guess someone said, "Oh, don't forget Jovan Musk."
Oh, Musk. Wow.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Musk is really strong.
Yes. Very strong. Another one on here on the text line was, "Don't forget Chaps."
Chaps. Yeah.
You know,
Chaps for men.
remember that? It was like, Chaps smell like a cowboy. Well, I don't want to smell like a cowboy. I mean, you're out there roping all day long and stepping in cow patties. Why do I want to smell like a cowboy? Chaps from Ralph Lauren or whatever that was. We got that on the text line, too. Yeah, I want to get if there was one more on here, too.
I was sold on British Sterling because they had the commercial.
British
with
Sterling
the
was
good-looking British girl on a horse.
Oh, yeah.
She'd ride up with the British Sterling on a silver platter.
Yep.
And bend over and hand it to
Well, that's what happened if you bought it. That's what happened to you in the store.
Somehow that never happened to me. I'm not sure.
So it said, where's it at here on the text line? Oh, yeah. Remember the original Old Spice?
Oh, yeah.
Because now they've kind of redone Old Spice to where they try to make it like hip and cool or whatever.
Yeah.
But
They have so many different versions of Old
I know.
Spice now.
when we were younger, remember it was the sailor guy?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't do it. I can't whistle.
Yeah.
I can't whistle. But he would be like, smell like a sailor.
Yeah.
Use
Come
Old
off the
Spice.
boat.
Come off the
smelling
boat.
like fish. It had seen for months. Smelled just like him.
Man, what a great smell that is. Cologne. Off the text line. I got some Chaps for again, my aunt. I love her. She would buy me all sorts of terrible things. She bought me Chaps once. Big old gift pack too, man. There's a cologne, the aftershave, all of it. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, English leather, remember that? That
English
had the,
leather.
Wooden top.
That made it fancy.
Yeah.
It smelled better.
Yeah.
English leather.
Got a lot of that at high school graduation.
Yeah, well, you always got that mess. Chaps was awful. I remember I opened it up because she bought it for me. I was like, oh my God. Jeez.
Your grandmother's buying you, cologne. It's not.
It's never good when your aunt and your grandma are hooking you up with cologne. My guess is you don't wear it. Like she's wearing, what was that for women? Gina Tay.
Gina Tay.
Remember that? Gina Tay.
Also made in Milwaukee.
Yes.
Not France.
In Gina Tay, Milwaukee, right next to Jovan, Milwaukee. The Gina Tay, you automatically smelled like an old lady.
Yep.
If you put on that Gina Tay.
Which, speaking of, you should, you get on the elevator here sometimes.
Oh, wow. Somebody's wearing Gina Tay and Chaps. There's some stuff, man. You walk in that elevator, woo!
Hello.
You get some, well, if you weren't awake, man, I don't know. Some people are wearing some stuff. No doubt. We appreciate the text for the bad smelly cologne.
Tyler likes Axe. I heard him.
Oh, yeah. They were saying this. For their generation, it was Axe body spray. You see, my two oldest wore that mess like nobody's business.
You just spray like a whole bottle on
Oh,
it.
yeah. You just sprayed it and walked into it. Yeah. Stuff was, and they thought it was like, girls are going to be, because like Tyler said, I'm watching the commercials as a teenager. Some dudes put on Axe body spray and girls are all over him. I want some of that action. He goes, I used Axe body spray. Really didn't help me much.
Oh, it's really weird.
Yeah, my two oldest wore that mess. I can, to this day, I can smell Axe body spray. Because they wore that stuff. Oh, no. Oh. Anyway, all right, it's Firehouse Sub text line with a really bad cologne. Thank you very much, 803-404-6100. More Jeremiah Donati coming up next hour. We'll hear more from the athletic director, the new athletic director at South Carolina. Some of his thoughts. Also, it's football in the 1 o'clock hour. We will dig into these college football conference championship games. We'll start that coming up as well. 1:30, Justin Hall. Love Chevy High School football scoreboard show tonight. The high school football playoff version with Justin and Elijah. We'll have Justin pop in at 1:30. Give us some high school spotlight sponsored by our buddies at Loomis. So that is all coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. Terry Ford, David Ayer, thanks for helping out, my man. It is the halftime show. We go till 3 on the game. Oh, it's a halftime show. Terry Ford Ledge going to be hanging out with us as we roll up until 3 o'clock on the game. We'll have more sound from Jeremiah Donati, the new athletic director at South Carolina. Get some sound from Jeremiah here shortly. Also, we do football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Bunch of sound from the participants in the conference championship games this weekend. A lot of it's getting underway tonight. You've got Boise State and UNLV, also Army and Tulane. Boise State and Army are hosting. We'll get to that here in just a little bit. And Commissioner Brett Yormark, his thoughts about a Group of 5 team getting an automatic, basically getting seated ahead of the Big 12 champion. Guess which side Brett Yormark's on. Yeah, exactly. So we'll get to all that. Right now, though, we'll circle back. Jeremiah Donati. Here was he was asked about, I guess, his answer to the question about his pitch to South Carolina during the hiring process. And basically, obviously, sold the other Gamecocks on extending the offer to Donati to be the new athletic director.
When I was, what was my pitch to the president and to Thad? We talked a lot about adapting to the changing environment, and I think, as I mentioned in my comments, it's we're talking about revenue sharing with student athletes, which is, more or less, changing college athletics forever, right? But guess what? There's more coming, right? Because sooner or later, they're going to be student athletes. We're going to have the discussion about them being employees. There's a bevy of other lawsuits there that threaten our model, if you will, and so we're not going to be able to solve all those problems, in a vacuum. It's going to take a lot of forward looking. It's going to take a lot of collaboration. And so, I was trying to impress upon them that, we're going to be ready for that. And we're going to be, that's one of the things I think I can bring to the table. A couple of things, candidly, I thought were really intriguing about this opportunity were the stadium renovations potentially. I was fortunate to do that twice, or to be a part of that twice at TCU, and in the multi-use entertainment district. You think about building together. I've seen other examples of that around the country, but having a connection directly to the university and have this branded South Carolina Gamecocks is pretty special. There's not many places in the country that could pull that off. So, we're going to, over the coming months, we'll do a better job of coloring our vision. I need a chance to really understand. This is not a fixer-upper. Right, this is not here because things are going poorly. Things are going really well, and the question is going to be, the challenge is going to be, how can you fly higher? So it'll take a time to understand where those, any gaps in excellence are and where those opportunities are. But we'll be ready.
Yeah, it's not a fixer-upper at all. I mean, it's in a good spot. You just want to go, okay, here's where we're at. Now, how do we get to the next level? That's all. I mean, that's really what you're looking at. It's a lot of good. Now, how do you make it even better than it is? So, no, not a fixer-upper at all. And, you look at all these ideas you just heard from Donati that are interesting. How you expand your brand, because that's a fancy word we now use. How do you expand your brand, which is South Carolina Gamecocks? And how do you expand that brand while generating revenue off of the expansion of the brand and the different partnerships you can hook up with to expand your brand to make you some more dough? How do you do all those things? All those different avenues you got to look at, because that's where it's at today. Yeah, and again, this kind of stuff makes some people's head, spin, but it's the world. And, Donati brought up something very interesting about the paying of the student athlete becoming an employee. Nobody wants to hear that. And really, I mean, look, even myself, who understands, trust me, I watched the tuition money go out of my bank account for kids. I'd love for them all to have a scholarship. My life would be great. I understand the value of a college scholarship. Believe me. But you've got to look at this in the bigger picture of they're not getting compensated for what they do except that scholarship. And that's not right. Stopping people from being able to make money, and what the NCAA has been doing is been breaking antitrust laws for years and years and years. So it's not even about what we think or what we like. This is about law. You just got to understand this is where it's at. Okay, what do we do? How do we leverage it? How do we take advantage of it the best? How do we put ourselves in the best position to succeed? Because this isn't going back. And they can't stand this idea of, wow, you got to negotiate a contract with a kid to keep him on your team? Really? Or he'll leave? You don't just automatically keep him because he signed a letter of intent? Really? This is where we're at? Yeah, that's where it's at. So you talk about how you're going to give Dylan Stewart NIL money to keep him. Lenora Sellers, he's an in-state kid, but how are you going to make sure he's happy in the NIL space so he doesn't even think about looking outside of the state of South Carolina? It's the reality of the world. And you have to have an athletic director who has the vision to push this stuff forward. This is where it's at. Just is. You know, we know what we grow up with, right? We just do as fans. We grew up on student athletes were quote-unquote amateurs. They weren't pros. Pros get paid. Amateurs, they're in school. They're student athletes. They're in there learning. That's right. They're going to class. They're students first. And some of them are. But at the end of the day, what they're also doing in football and in men's basketball is pulling in a lot of money for the university and for others. And now they're going to get compensated for it. You cannot limit their compensation. That's against antitrust laws. You just got to get it in your brain, understand this is where it's at. And the successful schools and programs are going to understand it, and they're going to jump into this space. All right, Jeremiah Donati also talking about what sold him on the University of South Carolina.
Great question. It was probably a few things. One, it was the leadership, and as I mentioned in my remarks, I mean, you want to go, I think in life, you want to go to places that are on an upward trajectory. That was one of the reasons why I chose to go to TCU. You can see pretty clearly this place is on a tremendous trajectory. And so it was easy to see that from a distance, but when you see the passion people have for this university, you want to be at a place where there's big expectations, where there's resources. And so I'm not answering your question. There wasn't one thing. It was a number of things. We wanted to be in a great college town. We wanted to be in a place where a community where we could raise our family. Those were all, very important. So it wasn't just one thing. It was a lot of things. But I'll tell you, I knew very early on, it wasn't very early on, I knew the moment I met President Emeritus and Thad Westbrook that these were special people, and this was a special place.
So he was looking for a place that's on its way up. And he looked at South Carolina and looked at all the possibilities that could happen here in Columbia, and he said, yep, that'll work. Because, again, it's not a fixer-upper again. It's got the foundation. Now you just have to build the hot tubs and the IMAX theaters and the cool outside patio area, and you just got to take it up a notch. It's got the foundation. Now you have to build upon the foundation and improve the foundation as you take this program where it needs to go in the new world of college athletics. Very simple. Football in the 1 o'clock hour. We'll get back to more Jeremiah Donati conversation and some more cuts from Donati as we go through the show. But focusing on football tonight, UNLV at Boise State on the blue. Tulane goes to West Point to play Army. Mountain West Championship, AAC Championship. I think Boise State will win because that game is on the blue and Boise. But that first UNLV Boise State game was tight, man. Boise State took the lead in the fourth quarter. UNLV got the ball back. After a first down, had to punt. And then Boise State choked the game out by holding the ball for 8 minutes. Ashton Jeanty, one of his worst games, he only ran for 128 yards. and a lot of that was late. But UNLV, Boise State, it's interesting. Two really good run defenses, two really good running offenses, two teams that get after quarterbacks, two teams without very good pass defenses. I feel like everything obviously focuses on Janty, and can Boise State make the adjustments to be able to run the ball better against UNLV than the first time? But I just sit here as a lot of times in these type of games when obviously your goal as UNLV is to stop, Janty. I think Maddox Madsen, the quarterback for Boise State, will be huge in this game. Because if UNLV can slow down Janty, then old Morris has got to make some throws. Maddox has got to be able to step up for Boise State. But again, if Janty runs wild, it doesn't matter. But I think it's going to be tight. UNLV could actually win this football game. That would flip everything else even more upside down. But Boise State, UNLV tonight, that's 8 o'clock on Fox for the Mountain West Championship. Army hosting Tulane. This one also is... Look, Tulane slowed down Navy. And that triple option offense. Army's better than the Naval Academy this year. Game is at West Point. I think in the Gamecock Central pick, I took Tulane. But it wouldn't surprise me if Army found a way to win this football game. But again, Tulane has defended the triple option against Navy. They're used to seeing it. This isn't like, oh, wow, this offense, where'd this come from? Tulane offensively can score. I just believe that Tulane will find a way to beat Army and win the AAC. So I got Boise State and Tulane for tonight. Football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. On Saturday, the Big 12 championship game. As they will, we'll see Iowa State and Arizona State go at it. We're going to say Brett Yormark's comments, the commissioner of the Big 12, for the next segment. But here is Iowa State head coach Matt Campbell talking about trying to make this as business as usual going into a championship game.
Yeah, I think our sport is so unique. College football is just a different animal, in my opinion. We don't get to play Tuesday and play good or bad and then get to play again on Saturday, and we don't get to play a doubleheader on Friday and then get to come back and play, another nightcap on Saturday. Like, that's just not our sport. And so our sport is a journey through, 12 guaranteed weeks of a football season and finding consistency, which is why college football is so entertaining, because it's so inconsistent to watch and you just don't know what you're going to get every week. And I think one thing I would hope when you turn our football team on, boy, every time they touch the field, it may not always be perfect, but the consistency of attitude, effort, and strain to go win the football game as a team, that's been what we've kind of built our foundation on and tried not to waver from that. So I really don't feel like it's any different. Man, I feel like we've been playing a one-game season, to be quite honest with you, pretty much all year. And we played big games all year, and it's great that we're at this point of the season and we've earned the right to be in this moment. But I think we've earned the right to be in this moment because our conviction to our standards, how we practice every day, how we come to prepare, should it be any different this week? I think you're somebody that maybe can't be the same person every day. And I think those teams really struggle. So I appreciate our kids saying that, and that's really what we've tried to do here.
Iowa State, Arizona State in Arlington, Texas at AT&T Stadium. Boy, that's got some juice, doesn't it? No, it doesn't. I mean, I like to see new blood. I do. I like Matt Campbell as a head coach at Iowa State. He was the darling coach in the country for a while. Iowa State was looked at as a program ready to pop, and then they fell back. And now they're in the mix once again. So that's cool. And now Matt Campbell's name is being thrown out for all the jobs, like North Carolina. Arizona State, again, to me, one of the most underachieving teams or programs in America. I mean, Tempe, Arizona is a thing. That weather, that location, they should have a better football program. But for the casual fan, they're going, tractor school against a party school? I think Arizona State wins. Why? Iowa State struggles stopping the run. And, of course, Arizona State has a heck of a running back in Cam Skadibo, whose name I always screw up. Scatibo. Really good running back. I think Arizona State just runs them over, and they win the football game. So I'll take Arizona State in that one. So put your money on Iowa State. All right, halftime show, football in the 1 o'clock hour. Speaking of Big 12, Brett Yormark had some comments we're going to play next here on the game. Oh, halftime show. Terry Ford, glad you could be hanging. Football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors on the game. Also, we'll get back to more Jeremiah Donati, the new athletic director, his comments yesterday at the presser. We got some more of that coming up. I want to get to Donati being open and transparent with the fan base. We'll get into that. I think that's an interesting comment that we want to expound upon. But first, as we talk about these championship games between now and 3 o'clock, the Big 12, we just, yipped about Iowa State, Arizona State, which again, for me, because, I'm a sports goober, I like to see new blood. I like the fact that, Iowa State hasn't won a conference championship since 1912. And, Arizona State has been a gigantic underachieving program for decades. So it's cool to see these two programs. You got Matt Campbell, again, a guy who has been the sexy up-and-coming coach for a long time, then wasn't, now is again. Kenny Dillingham, who I think is 14 years old, the head coach at Arizona State. To me, they're fun stories and they're interesting, but to the casual sports fan, they go, Iowa State, Arizona State? Really? And what's on Animal Planet? Brett Yormark, not very happy that Boise State could get a bye ahead of one of the Big 12 championship teams. And Yormark talked about that yesterday with the media.
As you know, I'm a pretty transparent guy, and I speak what's on my mind, and I'll look to do that right now. The committee continues to show time and time again that they are paying attention to logos versus resumes. I've said that before. I want to say it again. And I say logos because they're concentrating on team logos and conference logos. Strength of schedule should matter, and wins against Power 4 opponents should matter. 74% of the Big 12 wins were against Power 4 opponents this season. Meanwhile, the group of five is 11-80. I want to say that again. 11-80 versus Power 4 teams this season. And in no way should a group of five champion be ranked above our champion. And I'm going to say that one more time. In no way should a group of five champion be ranked above our champion.
I get what Brett Yormark is saying. I do. If I'm Brett Yormark, I'm saying the same thing. And when you throw out those numbers, makes sense, right? And Boise State, I mean, they played Oregon tough in Eugene, lost by 3. That loss is looked at better than any of the Big 12's wins when it comes to Arizona State and Iowa State. I think that committee values the Boise State loss at Oregon against the number one team in the country by 3 early in the year more than they value any win that Arizona State or Iowa State has. That's just me. But what Yormark is saying about, the Power 4 teams compared to Group of 5 and the records against the Power 4 and all that, well, yeah, that's correct. But here's the thing again. These games are TV shows. They are. And Boise State, and I believe TV numbers would back it up, Boise State pulls better TV ratings when their games are on than an Iowa State or an Arizona State combined. Because, people know Boise State, the Blue Turf, beating Oklahoma years ago when Oklahoma had Adrian Peterson. And they did the little, they did the hook and ladder, and they did the Statue of Liberty. And didn't that player ask that cheerleader to marry him on the field? Boise State was a thing for a bit. So whenever they're winning a lot, people remember Boise State. Nobody remembers Iowa State. Nobody remembers Arizona State. The one team in the Big 12 right now with the hope of any kind of juice to the casual fan is Colorado because of Deion. That's it. Colorado gets higher ratings than pretty much anybody when they're on TV. The Big 12 secretly, how can we oh, how can we fix these games so Colorado can win the Big 12? But unfortunately, these are TV shows. And a TV show with Boise State brings more eyeballs than a TV show with Arizona State and Iowa State. Boise State's going to be ranked ahead of them. That's the way it is. Unless Boise State loses, then UNLV, if they get in, they will fall behind, I think, the champion of the Big 12. Because they don't have a loss to Oregon by 3 on the road on their resume. We got to get Brett Yormark, but you got to stop this logic. You got to stop this common sense. It's not about that. This committee, I think we've learned, is going to twist and turn numbers to their narrative, to whatever their agenda is. And that's just the bottom line. And we're seeing that. Because when Brett Yormark said about logos, that's what it is there, commish. It's about brands. Because, again, it's a TV show. Our Justin Hall is going to hang out with us next. We're going to talk some high school football playoffs in the Love Chevy High School Football Scoreboard Show tonight, 9 to 11 with Justin and Elijah. That is here on the game, keeping you up to date with what's going on, not just in the Midlands, but in the state in high school football. That is coming up next. Halftime show. We do football in the 1 o'clock hour right here on the game. What we're talking about, high school football playoff action tonight. Love Chevy High School football scoreboard show. Justin Hall, some hippie dude named Elijah Campbell. I think it'd be cool if we could, do a little AI and switch your hairstyles for a night on the video stream.
I don't think anyone would want that ever. I can't pull off the long hair.
Have you tried it? Did you ever give it a whirl when you were younger, or go a little crazy, little man bun?
No, I mean, my hair was long, but it was never beyond anything crazy. I had a bowl cut when I was 5.
Oh.
They were in style then. They were
never in style, Justin. Stop it.
I was a kindergartner. I made no choices. I didn't pull out the scissors myself and slap the bowl on top and cut around. Right?
Yeah, we've all got that picture, don't we? That elementary school picture where we got the bowl haircut.
It's in my house.
Awful.
Yeah, somewhere.
Yeah. I got one of those too. Terrible. Terrible. All right, here we go. High school football playoff action tonight. Let's start Class 5A, Division I, Spartanburg at Dutch Fork. What do you got for me, my man?
So Dutch Fork is 11-0 in state semifinal games under Tom Knotts. So literally, we can say right now it's impossible to beat them in the semifinals. Now, I take it as just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean it can't. This is a rematch, though. Dutch Fork and Spartanburg back in week 1. They officially declared it week 1 because they're smart. And Dutch Fork beat Spartanburg in Spartanburg 24-7. And Dutch Fork's defense has allowed 73 points this season. 73. In 2020, the COVID year, they only played 10 games and they allowed 94. And so they're looking for their 9th state championship in school history, and this would be their 5th unbeaten season in school history if they can get it done. And it's a rematch of a game that happened a long time ago, so we'll see if Dutch Fork can keep it rolling and play for a state championship.
Spartanburg have a shot?
I think they got a shot. 24-7 doesn't seem ridiculous. They were outclassed in the second half. They've got a shot. It's playoff football. It'll be cold tonight. Anything can happen. And they're a really good football team from the upstate. But Dutch Fork's that team now. It's hard to say they're not going to win a ball game.
All right, Justin Hall. Another game, Class 5A Division I, Sumter at Somerville.
So this is about ending streaks. Somerville and Sumter. Sumter has not made a state championship game since 2013. I was in high school. I was a senior that year.
Wow.
And they've lost in the semifinal round twice, though, since 2020. So they've been on the doorstep, the Sumter Gamecocks, trying to make it happen. Sumter's last state championship came in 1990. And Somerville, the Fighting Preston Thorns, as they're known on our program, they're looking for their first state title since 2007. John McKissick was alive and the head coach the last time that happened, one of the greatest high school football coaches ever, period, countrywide. And they're going to their 3rd straight semifinal game. The last 2, they're 0-2. They lost to Fort Dorchester, and they lost to White Knoll last year. Somerville has not won a state title, though, since 1998. So they played for one in 2007, but they haven't won one since 98. I was 4. So these are two name brand. I mean, when you talk high school football in this state, Somerville and Sumter are up there. They're going to be in your top 10 probably. They're playing for an opportunity to take on that winner of Dutch Fork and Spartanburg. Should be a great game. Between those two teams.
That's back when you had a bowl haircut. Who wins that? Who wins that one? If you had to put the money on one?
Sumter. Sumter's really good. I think Sumter wins close.
Class 5A Division II, Gaffney at Northwestern. Help me out.
This game's weird because Gaffney only plays weird football games. We've talked about that all year. They specialize in weird. Gaffney actually trails the all-time series. It's the 57th meeting between these two. Northwestern, the Trojans lead at 50-26. The last time they played, Northwestern beat them 49-24. But Gaffney has won 18 state championships, and the Trojans have won 5. 3 of those came between 2010 and 2015. Northwestern scores points, and they scored them a lot. I mean, just they break scoreboards with how many points they score. Gaffney trying to make things weird. Gaffney's coach is retiring at the end of the year. He's got 7 rings. He brought those out to practice last week and said, hey, boys, this is what's on the line right here. I got 7 of these. I want to make it an 8th one. It's a rivalry game. It's the upstate. It's going to be weird. It's going to be crazy. And one of these teams is going to fall to a rival with a state championship spot on the line, and that's going to be tough to deal with.
Who wins that one?
Northwestern. I think Northwestern's been head and shoulders has been one of the better teams in the entire state outside of Dutch Fork. They're just really good right now.
Class 5A, we're talking to our buddy Justin Hall, Love Chevy High School Football Scoreboard Show tonight with Justin and Elijah here on 107.5 The Game in Columbia. All right, Irmo hosts Whitehall. It's the other Class 5A Division II tilt. Tell me about it.
White Knoll is the lowest ranking team left in the playoffs in terms of region finish and how they look this year. We've talked with Coach Nicholas Pelham a couple times on the program. He is brutally honest, and I appreciate that very much as the guy who is hosting a show. These two teams, it's another rematch of a game that happened earlier this season. They met on October 18th. Irmo won that game 35-21. That game was tied in the fourth quarter. And then Irmo broke off a 60-yard touchdown, and then they stopped White Knoll on 4th down near midfield the next drive, and then they scored a late touchdown to seal it. A.J. Brand was just named the Gatorade Football Player of the Year for South Carolina. Not Mr. Football, but the Gatorade Football Player of the Year. Of course, he just signed with Virginia Tech. The Yellow Jackets are looking for their first state championship appearance since 2006. White Knoll is looking to go back to the state championship game for the second year in a row. And earlier in the year, when I was interviewing Coach Pelham for a pre-recorded interview post Hurricane Helene, he said, "We need to get better because we want to see Irmo again. We want to see Irmo again." And I thought, oh, that's interesting. So it's a clash of styles. Coach Pelham, a good defensive coach, a great defensive coach, and a really good head football coach. A.J. Brand, Coach Aaron Brand, Donovan Murph, the fireworks, the firepower on the other side. That offense is crazy. But this game, I think we're going to see an upset tonight, Mr. Terry Ford. I think White Knoll is going to go back to the state championship game for a second year in a row and try to snag them one.
Look at you. Look at you going.
I do what I can. I can't go chalk.
That would be boring.
It would be.
Yeah.
White Knoll gets the upset tonight.
Sometimes you get these teams that, on paper shouldn't win, but, again, football gods are on their sides. They got momentum. It's a great Disney story, and all of a sudden, they're like, they're jumping all over each other in the middle of the field. It happens, Justin. It happens.
Until a committee of no names tells you, no, you're not good enough to be in the playoffs. Then,
Exactly.
Then everything goes away.
Love Chevy High School Football Scoreboard Show tonight with Justin and Elijah here on 107.5 The Game in Columbia. All right, any other games regionally or statewide we should pay attention to tonight?
You got 4. We only talked about 5A. In 4A, you've got South Point at Westside. Gamecock signee Cutter Woods, the quarterback for Westside. They're playing tonight with a chance to go play for a state championship. South Florence is going to North Augusta. South Florence has Jaden Sellers and several others. They'll be playing tonight against North Augusta. In 3A, you've got BHP and Mountain View Prep. Mountain View Prep, their first year existing as a program, they're playing for a state championship opportunity. That's going to be a great running back matchup there. Oceanside Collegiate is at Loris. If Mountain View Prep and Oceanside Collegiate both win tonight, it'll be an all-public charter state championship game next week for 3A. Fairfield Central's back in the state championship opportunity for the first time in a while, but Clennon is really good on the other side. Should be a great game. The Warhorses of Barnwell are at Manning. Another great matchup in 2A there. And in 5A, the semifinals there. Cross is at Lakeview. And the Louisville Lions that took down our Hunter Connor Tyler Trojans, they go to Abbeville. And Abbeville is the Ric Flair of high school football. They're just always there. And they literally have the rings and the belts to prove it. And every time you think they're down, they're not. And Abbeville didn't look great earlier in the year, lost to Batesburg-Leesville, but kind of ran the table the rest of the way. They're looking for another state title, this time in 1A. So it's going to be a fun night. Semifinals across the state and setting up. We'll know at the end of our program tonight who's playing for a state championship game next Friday and Saturday.
All right, Justin Hall and the hippie Elijah Campbell tonight, 9 to 11. In honor of Elijah, wear a tie-dyed shirt and some sandals.
Well, I don't want to freeze on my way over to the studio. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what I pull out.
Yeah.
I usually wear Gamecock garb, but the season's over, regular season, that is. So I'll have to figure that out.
All right, Justin Hall, Love Chevy High School Football Scoreboard Show tonight. Always appreciate you, my man. Thank you.
All right. See you guys tonight.
All right, we'll get back as we continue football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Continue on. We have the SEC Championship game to talk about, the Big Ten, also the ACC, and more from the new AD, Jeremiah Donati. All that's coming up on the halftime show. Terry Ford, appreciate you hanging out. Coming up between now and the top of the hour, we'll give you a chance to win a couple of pair of tickets to go see South Carolina, the men this weekend against East Carolina. So be listening between now and the top of the hour, which is 2 o'clock. We'll give you a chance to snag a pair of tickets to go check out Carolina and East Carolina. Get back to football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. That is next on the halftime show on the game in Columbia, Florence, and Myrtle Beach. Time to get our Firehouse sub text the hour here on the Halftime Show. (803-404-6100). We rolled with some bad cologne last hour. This hour, though, on the Firehouse subtext line, unnamed texter, if we don't get screwed out of winning the LSU game, we beat Georgia in the tiebreaker. We'll be prepping for Atlanta this week. That game will haunt Carolina forever. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, just losing to LSU, yeah, I mean, conceivably, you're sitting at 6-2 in the SEC. You're 10-2 on the season, which should push your resume, you think, ahead of Alabama, Ole Miss, Miami, and you're in the college football playoff, or maybe the way things break out, maybe you're playing for the SEC championship. Who knows? If all the tie-breaking scenarios go your way. It stinks. Or if you'd have, won that game in Tuscaloosa where you had a shot at the end multiple times. So, yeah, I mean, those two games will stick in your craw. The LSU game, Lenore Sellers got hurt, couldn't play the second half. Yes, the officiating stunk. Also, you had some self-inflicted wounds you would love to have back. And all of it equals 9-3, and you're sitting behind Alabama and Ole Miss and Miami. And you shouldn't be sitting behind Miami. Neither should Ole Miss. We've had this discussion. It is this college football playoff committee, if you look at it closely, will take certain processes and apply it to one situation, but won't apply it to the exact same other situation. It's like we have an agenda and we are going to just pull numbers out of our lower extremities to back up our agenda. That's just what it is. Real quick before we get to the championship game stuff, and we will get back to Jeremiah Donati, the new athletic director. We'll get some more cuts from Jeremiah. According to Pete Nakos, and this is written by Wes Mitchell on Gamecock Central, South Carolina is among schools set to receive a visit from Liberty Transfer Portal center Jordan White. Also on White's list, Michigan, Miami, Colorado, and Vanderbilt. The Michigan visit is set for December 11th. Currently, the visit to South Carolina has been put in for December 19th. White's Pro Football Focus grade, good, 81.4. That's a very good grade. And obviously, losing for Sean Lee to graduation. You have some in-house young offensive linemen with tons of potential. Yeah, sure. You got a few 4-stars sitting around waiting their turn. Josiah Thompson last year, 5-star, played, started every game. He was healthy. But you learned 2 years ago, you can't just rely on the development of your young'uns on your roster. Torrey Ellis-Simpkins, brought in as a transfer, was the team's best offensive lineman. White, really good at Liberty, was a second team, all second team last year in Conference USA. If you get him, that'd be a nice snag for South Carolina. But again, you've got Michigan, Miami, Colorado, Vanderbilt also on the list. But according to Pete Nakos of On3, posted up by Wes Mitchell, Jordan White, center at Liberty, penciled in for a visit to South Carolina on December the 19th. All right, back to the conference championships. SEC is 4 o'clock on ABC Saturday. Here's Steve Sarkisian talking about playing a team for the second time.
Well, I think the one thing that I've tried to lean into here today is we're just kind of in the preliminary stages of it all, is kind of take myself back to the NFL, and you get in your division there and you play you play teams, multiple times a year, and then over time, a couple years go by, you start playing them, 4 times in 2 years. If it's a playoffs, 5 times in 2 years. And so you just try to, try to do the things that you do well. B, you try to take in the information that maybe you can gather from seeing them in person as opposed to what it looks like on tape. And then making sure that you have an idea of some of your own tendencies that you're not, you're able to break some of those things. But at the end of the day, our job is to put our players in the best position to be successful. And whether that's physically, mentally, schematically, whatever that looks like. And so that's what we always kind of fall back to. But again, I do think there are some things you can take from the first matchup, good and bad. And clearly there was enough things that we need to fix from the first time we played them. You don't get shut out in the first half. You don't have 4 turnovers in the game. You're not trailing 23-0 without having plenty of things to get better from the first time we played.
Yeah, Georgia got on them early. And Texas was scuffling the entire game. Georgia defensively just destroyed the Texas pass protection. Pressure, sacks. Carson Beck overcame, 3 interceptions in that game? And Georgia won easy. So what does Texas do to adjust? What does Georgia do? They stick with the same type of game plan, or they start tweaking around things as well that they've seen on film since that game? I think Georgia wins. Because Kirby Smart and Georgia, when it comes to big games, they get interested. And Texas hasn't faced this yet in a big game scenario. So I'll take Georgia in the SEC championship game at 4 o'clock. All right, halftime show. We keep going on the game. What's trending at 2 on the Game, sponsored by Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry. New AD at South Carolina, Jeremiah Donati. Right now at TCU as the athletic director. First of the year will be showing up at South Carolina to become the new AD. One of the things that was interesting was an answer to a question where he was talking about being transparent with the fan base here at South Carolina. And again, transparency, sometimes you can be massively transparent, and then there's different levels of transparency at times with folks. But here's Donati talking about transparency with the folks here in Columbia.
Absolutely. I think in our roles, you want to be visible. You want to be transparent. It's a great way to engage fans, engage students. I've found that, especially in social media, sometimes the best way to engage our student athletes is to send them a note after a game on Instagram and just show them I was, impressed or whatever it is. So that'll continue. In fact, I met with the communications team this morning about some ideas that they have. I think it's very important to be open and honest with the fan base. They want to hear from you when things are going great, but they also want an explanation when they're not. And so there's a balance there. But I plan to continue to do those things and to find other ways. I think that the podcast, for example, is a tremendous tool that you see some people doing really well. We're talking about exploring doing that in the future here as well. So I'm open to any ideas. So Gamecock Nation, you got some ideas, send them our way. I'll be on social media, and when I switch over my social media accounts, and at the end of the day, I won't be hard to find.
Again, this is the world. You have an athletic director who's going to be very active on social media, talking to the fan base, reaching out to the student athletes, talking about doing a podcast, all these different things now to connect. That's the world. And Jeremiah Donati, obviously, no problem operating in that space to be able to connect with the community. And we've seen Shane Beamer. It just is. But if you're comfortable living in that space and understanding that's what's going to happen, and no matter what you do, there's going to be people that are cool with it and people who aren't, then, that's the place to go to communicate. Also, Donati was talking about what he learned from his first stint as an athletic director at TCU.
It's not a popularity contest. And I think when you're a younger AD and you're doing it for your first time, I made a comment that I made myself so available and to answer every single question. And while I want to do that, it's not sustainable, and it's not probably the best use of my time as athletics director here. So you kind of learn those things, quickly of where you need to put your priorities and where you need to put your focus. And so, it was funny, when I became athletics director, it wasn't long after that we had the pandemic. And so I was, 2 years into the role, and we were trying to figure out what life was going to be like. And so that was, I think, coming. If you've ever seen The Godfather, the movie, there's such thing as a wartime consigliere. I think working in a sports agency probably prepared me a little bit for this job. And so, I've obviously had a tremendous amount of, challenges along the way. Every athletics director does, but you build on those things, you learn from those things, and those things hopefully make you better. But I've been fortunate, and I know Chris Del Conte is probably watching this. He was a great mentor of mine, and I got to ride shotgun with him when I was in the number 2 role at TCU. And so I learned a lot from watching him. Jim Livengood was a mentor of mine. He was the athletics director at Washington State and then Arizona. So, I've kind of stood on the shoulders of giants. I've really seen a lot of people that have done it at a high level. Lee Steinberg, you mentioned, Victor Boschini. So when you're around great leaders like that, you hope it brushes off on you. And I think I've been fortunate that I've learned a lot from those people.
There's nothing like, getting in there and doing it. And at TCU, again, you can be the assistant in anything, right? If you've ever gone through this in life, you know what I'm going to be talking about. You can be the assistant in anything. The right-hand man to the guy. Or one of the right-hand men to the guy. But it's nothing like being the guy. You think you know what you know when you become the guy. When you become the guy, the funniest part is you're like, wow, I really had no idea how to be the guy. And now I'm the guy. Oh, no. I mean, you just, they're as prepared as you think you are. you're not as prepared as you think you are, if that makes any sense. And that's what Jeremiah Donati's talking about there. You go to TCU and, okay, I'm going to do it this way, and you realize, if I really want to maximize my time, I've got to shuffle what I think. And you learn, you evolve, and Donati will in the job here. You never stop learning. If you think you know it all, you stop knowing anything. Because you don't get better. You don't grow. Donati also talking about some of the folks that he has worked with before. Some guys who had really done some good work in the past. That always helps. So we'll see where it goes moving forward with Jeremiah Donati. One last cut here. Donati worked with Lee Steinberg. Donati, worked obviously for a sports agency dealing with athletes. And here's Donati talking about the benefits of working in the sports agency field with Lee Steinberg.
Lee, if you're watching, I love you. Hope all's well in Newport Beach. Lee actually represented a student athlete here not too long ago at USC. At the time, I wouldn't have known, right? Because, we were doing marketing deals before there was NIL. In fact, I always thought it was interesting that, the pros could do NIL deals, but the college students, couldn't. So when NIL started becoming a concept, if you will, I was one of the first that was an advocate for it. So all that to be said, that experience was invaluable, and Lee was so great to me. He's a mentor. For those of you who don't know Lee, you can watch the movie Jerry Maguire. He's the inspiration of that movie, and I'm forever grateful for the 5 years I had with him in California. So it was, at the time, I never would have imagined that getting a law degree and working in a sports agency would prepare you so well, for the post-COVID NIL world, but it did, hopefully, and so here we are. But I'm very grateful for my time with Lee.
So, yeah, you just learn another side of it, right? You learn the representing player side, dealing with players, looking at those contracts, and that's coming with this whole new, if you want to call it salary cap, revenue sharing, compensation cap, whatever you want to call it, it's coming for players, student athletes. It's good to have a guy around who understands the mechanics of player contracts and player deals and marketing deals and all those things that are 2024 with student athletes. And Jeremiah Donati, obviously working with Lee Steinberg, you learned a lot of that side of this whole situation. All right, South Carolina last night, the women 81-70 over Duke in the SEC-ACC Challenge. Gamecocks were rolling. They were up 51-31 at halftime. Lead grew to like 25. Then all of a sudden Duke cut it to single digits, but South Carolina holds on to get the win 81-70. Dawn Staley in the postgame talking about the offense. South Carolina just shot the lights out. 57% from the floor, 50% from three. Here's the coach discussing especially the first half offense, which was excellent for South Carolina.
I don't know what I envision, right? Because sometimes we don't know what we're getting. We know what we want. Like, we really know what we're when we look good, when we're most efficient, we know what that looks like. Sometimes our players really, they don't know what that looks like because they think all open shots are good shots, and they're not. Okay, so we're sometimes struggle with that. I thought we did a really good job in the first half of taking advantage of numbers when we had them, right? And then reversing the ball when we didn't have numbers, which increases our shooting percentage. I thought Duke did a great job at disrupting and not allowing us to make entry passes. And I thought we did a good job at just going a little bit deeper into our offense, where if you're not going to allow us to make an entry pass, and our post did a really good job flashing to the ball, and we played through them a lot. And it was really good to see, both the guards and the post connected.
Yeah, first half, they were smoking on offense. Came out of the gate fast. Remember, that's one of the problems this year, slow starts for Carolina. Didn't happen last night, got rolling, and then just, kind of got bored in the fourth quarter. Duke made a run, but South Carolina gets the W. Chloe Kitts, 21-11 for South Carolina in the win. What's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Hall of Fame wide receiver Randy Moss will take a little time away from his role as an analyst on ESPN's Sunday NFL Countdown. He's dealing with a health issue, the network announced today. Moss last week was wearing glasses during the show, sunglasses. And on Sunday also asked for fans to pray for him and his family on Instagram. And he directed his message to men, urging him to get checkups and blood work done. Didn't specify anything about what the issue is. Bronco Mendenhall got back into coaching last year at New Mexico. Now will move on and become the head coach at Utah State. Obviously, a lot of stuff going on at Utah State in the last year or two regarding coaching and some off-the-field drama. Well, Mendenhall, who went 5-7 at New Mexico, will jump to Utah State. Obviously, Mendenhall, many years at BYU. So Bronco Mendenhall back in the state he's really familiar with as the head coach at Utah State. Remember, Mendenhall was at Virginia and just said, "Oh, look, I need a leave of absence, man. I got to go do something besides coaching football." Mendenhall back inside the Green Bay 30. Really, I think inside the 25. 43 seconds left, 4th and inches. Instead of kicking the field goal to take the lead, Campbell said, "Works for Detroit." I mean, do they make it every time? No. They sometimes put themselves in harm's way because they go for it on 4th and short and get stuffed? Yeah. But that football team believes in itself. And even if they get stopped on 4th and 1, the defense comes out saying, "That's all right, we got you." Now, I think one of the reasons Dan Campbell went for it last night on 4th and inches was if you kick the field goal there's about 40 seconds left, and Green Bay gets the ball back with a chance to go down the field and either tie the game or win the game, and your defense has a ton of injuries. And right now you got a heck of a lot more confidence in your offense to make a 4th and inches and your defense to make a stop. I get it. I'd have kicked the field goal, but I understand that thought process by Dan Campbell, and it worked, to his credit. And one of the reasons it works, besides execution of the play, is that your team believes. They believe in themselves. They believe in you. They believe in going forward all the time on 4th down. Hell, they probably look at you, why are we going forward on 4th and 23, Coach? What's the deal? So Lions win last night 34-31 to clinch a playoff spot, by the way. Only lost one game all year. Phenomenal. All right, back to the college football conference championship weekend. We talked about the SEC championship game. I think Georgia wins. I think they're a big game team. Kirby has coached a ton of these games. Texas they were in it last year, but Georgia, for some reason, if it's not Alabama, Georgia usually shows up really well in these big games. I'll take Georgia. Penn State and Oregon. Until Penn State wins a big game, I can't pick Penn State to win a big game. I just can't. Here's James Franklin, Penn State head coach, in being in the Big Ten championship game.
Yeah, we're excited to play Oregon. Great opportunity, playing the #1 team in the country. We're excited about that. That's what we control. That's what we're focused on, not focused on anything else. I mean, I understand the question, and I appreciate the question, but we're just focused on trying to beat the #1 team in the country, Oregon, in Indianapolis, in the Big Ten, and just totally focused on that and not any of the other scenarios or discussions.
I mean, I wonder if James Franklin, sent some gifts to Sharon Moore and Michigan for knocking Ohio State out of the way so Penn State could backdoor into the Big Ten title game. However you get there is how you get there. But Oregon, to me, will slow down Penn State's run game and look at Penn State and say, beat us throwing the ball. And I don't think Penn State can do that. I think Oregon wins. Much more balanced, much better football team. All right, right now, 803-404-6100. Callers number 3 and 4 each get a pair of tickets to go see South Carolina, East Carolina at CLA this weekend. Men's basketball. Callers number 3 and 4, 803-404-6100. Our buddy Scott Hamilton next from the Post and Courier. We'll be talking to Scott on the halftime show on the game. All right, what's trending at 2? Sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry, Gamecock Traditions. New athletic director at South Carolina, Jeremiah Donati. A man who was there to cover the entire day, Scott Hamilton from the Post and Courier. It's always, those things are always exciting, my man.
Yeah. It was a lot of hurrying up and waiting and being shuttled around because you can't hear this and you can't be disclosed to that. Yeah, but it actually was, though. This guy's bringing in a jolt of energy, Terry. I like his bona fides and I like his vibe, and I'm excited actually to see everything he achieves.
Scott Hamilton from the Post and Courier hanging out with us here on the halftime show on the game. And in your column, post, whatever you want to call it, Post and Courier, I went column like it's 1986. Listen to me. Your post on the Post and Courier.
Post.
Your USC's new AD has typical 21st century profile. Kind of expound a bit on what you mean by that, because you're spot on correct.
Yeah, well, it's more, back in the day, and not the distant past. I mean, we can point to Ray Tanner, but it used to be a coach would either move on up into administration, or he or she would be the AD while they were coaching. I mean, we used to see that all the time. Oh, well, so-and-so's the football coach. He's also the athletic director, like it's a big high school or something. And that's not the case so much anymore. You're getting these people who have more – I'm trying to think of a proper way to frame this. They have more nuanced backgrounds than just being a coach. They are usually lawyers, some of them. Some of them have very, very intense business backgrounds. And we're seeing more and more. We're seeing guys who actually have experience in player representation. And you have to bundle all that together, Terry, because the athletic director of 2024 and going forward is a guy who he has to be able to navigate all the murky legal stuff while also being the Pied Piper and being able to bring in myriad revenue streams to pay for not only NIL and facilities expansions and stuff like that, but just to keep things moving forward. And then you also, from the player agent side, goes back to the NIL to help make things appealing for athletes to come, and then also to retain them. Remember, we're in an age now where coaches, and this is why I think a lot of the best coaches going forward are not going to be in the college ranks. We're in an age now where coaches in college, they don't get a day off. It's literally working every day, recruiting. And I'm not talking about high school recruiting. I'm not talking about even just recruiting the portal. You got to recruit your own team. You got to make sure Johnny and Jimmy are happy year round, or they will hit that portal for what they think will be greener pastures where they'll either get more playing time or more NIL or both. And you need an athletic director who can help the coaches, give them the tools they need to retain their rosters and to bring in talent as they need it.
Scott Hamilton hanging out with us from the Post and Courier. That whole thing, when you talked about today's AD and what they need, did that make your head hurt? Just thinking about all that mess?
Look, man, it's above my feeble pay grade to even consider having a job like that. But, if I were to go to law school, I wish back in the day, Terry, when I had such an option, believe it or not, I wish I had gone to law school now, not to be a lawyer, but to be an agent or to be an athletic director. Who would have thought those kinds of experiences would be so valuable now in athletics, especially college athletics? And Terry, we've seen it coming for a while. I spoke with Gene Smith, former athletic director at Ohio State. He was there, 20 years, I believe, 19 years. He was one of the most esteemed ADs in the country. And he said, no, this has actually been happening since the late 1990s, early 2000s. And that's right about the time, Terry, when all the money started just maybe looking in a different direction when it came to recruiting for the athletic director position.
Scott Hamilton hanging out with us from the Post and Courier here on the halftime show with Terry Ford in the game. Think about this, Scott. We're seeing athletic directors with law degrees, and they've worked for agents, and they got business degrees. They're from Fortune 500 companies, or they're from the entertainment field, wherever. They're from all over the place now, guys who understand big business. We've got colleges, now football programs, hiring general managers to deal with their rosters because of NIL and transfer portal. Geez, Scott, it's becoming like professional sports all of a sudden. Wow, how about that?
That said, it seems awful familiar. and Terry, it's not just at the university level, though. I mean, think about it. Commissioner of the Big Ten, Tony Batiti. I knew him when he was at CBS Sports. Okay, you got Brett Yormark. He came from the NBA, but his bread and butter isn't just NBA. It's also about entertainment. That's why I think the Big 12 is on the verge of becoming the most entertaining conference in all the land for myriad reasons. So it's not just at the university level. And look, if you have a Power 4 program, if you are, and I need to do my research, and Terry, maybe you can enlighten me on this. If I'm Shane Beamer, I'm going to have a general manager. I'm going to have a guy who's going to be helping me with player acquisitions, helping make sure the players are getting what they want, that they're satisfied with regards to NIL. So I don't have to worry about all this. So I can actually pay more attention to what my coaching staff is doing. Otherwise, you're going to fail. You're going to fail. Nick Saban, greatest innovator in the history of college sports. I want to say he was the first one to have a general manager a few years ago. He was also the guy, by the way, Terry, that introduced the sideline tent. People forget that. That's a Nick Saban joint.
Scott, help the Post and Courier. Always good hanging out with you, my man. We'll bug you again next Friday, brother.
Can't wait, man. Have a great weekend.
All right, you too. We'll see you. All right, what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. All right, so this weekend here on the game, we got stuff going on. We got things. We got basketball. Men's and women's basketball coming up this weekend on the game. Obviously, the men take on East Carolina. Women travel to TCU to take on the Horned Frogs, and you'll hear all that. You'll hear the men's basketball game right here on 107.5 The Game in Columbia and our affiliate 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach. The women's basketball on Sunday will be right here on 107.5 The Game. Greatest day in the history of the world. I think it's December 6th, right? Yeah, December 6th. We'll talk about that next. And talk about the ACC championship game as well on the halftime show. Up until 3, we hang here on the game. Time to roll the greatest day in the history of the world. Here on the Halftime Show. Terry Ford, please, appreciate you hanging around today here on the game. Post-game show coming up at 3. Elijah rolling without Jay today. Jay wanted a day off. Jeez. Diva. All right, so we'll have, Monday. Again, it's time. People take days off, holidays, all that good stuff. Next week, we'll be moving some pieces around for the early game as Gunner's taking some time off. Tyler actually wants a day off, which I just don't understand. But anyway, we'll be moving some folks around next week as well. So Elijah will be with Jack. Jack Feltry will be here today to hang out with Elijah on the post-game show from 3 to 6, our buddy from Gamecock Central. All right, greatest day in the history of the world. We always try to grab an old school one. On this day in 1939, Iowa's Niall Kinnick wins the Heisman Trophy. He threw for 638 yards, rushed for 374, had 11 touchdowns. You look at those numbers and go, that dude won the Heisman? Yes. If you just look at stats, you're like, eh? But that's the world. It just, the numbers are quite different, and obviously in different generations of sports. But Kinnick wins the Heisman. Interesting life, Niall Kinnick. All-American at Iowa. Won the Heisman Trophy in 1939. And in 1943, died during a training flight while serving as United States Naval Aviator in World War II. Inducted in the College Football Hall of Fame in 1951. And yes, that is the name on the University of Iowa's football stadium, Kinnick Stadium. So Niall Kinnick won the Heisman Trophy this day in 1943. Also, greatest day in the history of the world, Vinny Testaverde won the Heisman. And that was a no-brainer, won it easy over Paul Palmer of Temple, the running back. And again, people thought Testaverde was a no-brainer to go to the NFL, have a great career, had a long career, but never was a great career. He had moments where he was a solid player, solid starter, but it always felt like, he was around a long time, but never quite was as good as we thought. But Vinny Testaverde at Miami in 1986 was ridiculous. Runaway winner of the Heisman Trophy. 1992, Jerry Rice becomes the NFL's career leader in touchdown receptions. Snagged his 101st scoring pass during the fourth quarter of a Niner easy victory over the Dolphins. Rice passed Steve Largent of the Seattle Seahawks, who had the record before with 100. Back when U.S. tennis was really good on the men's side, Jim Courier won in 4 sets as the U.S. recaptured the Davis Cup. 1998, Denver picked up a 35-31 comeback win over Kansas City, becoming the third 13-0 team in NFL history. At that time, they had joined the 34 Bears and 72 Dolphins. Obviously, the Patriots joined that, and we've seen some other teams have some nice long streaks to open the season. But at that point, in 1998, Denver was the third team to start 13-0. A couple more here on the greatest day in the history of the world. 2008, Southern Cal beat UCLA 28-7. Won its 7th straight Pac-10 championship. The Trojans won 11 or more games in 7 straight seasons, which was another record. Look, Pete Carroll's Southern Cal Trojans, they were phenomenal. They just were. Even though we had to erase that 1 year from our minds, remember? Like Men in Black? Yeah. Silly. Silly. All right, a couple more. 2009, Brett Favre, the Minnesota Viking quarterback at the time, sets an NFL record by playing his 283rd consecutive game in a loss to Arizona. Favre broke a long-time record held by Minnesota Viking defensive end Jim Marshall at 282. And finally, dude still running around the NFL, Derrick Henry on this day in 2018 ran for a franchise record 238 yards, 4 touchdowns in a win over Jacksonville, including a 99-yard touchdown run that tied Tony Dorsett of the Dallas Cowboys for the longest run in NFL history. So there's your greatest day in the history of the world. here on the game. All right, we have been discussing these conference championship games, and just to rewind a bit, I think Oregon beats Penn State in the Big Ten championship game. I believe Georgia will take out Texas in the SEC championship game. Arizona State runs the ball really well. Iowa State does not stop the run well at all. I think Arizona State basically runs over Iowa State in the Big 12 championship game. I think it's going to be close. But Boise State at home in a very cold Albertson Stadium will eke out a W over a better than you think UNLV squad, and Boise State will win the Mountain West Championship and go off to the college football playoff. I batted this one back and forth. Tulane going to West Point to take on Army, right there on the Hudson. Again, Tulane going into some cold weather. I think the Green Wave finds a way to beat Army and to win the AAC. All right, the one we didn't get into yet was Clemson and SMU. The ACC championship, of course, Clemson, they thought they were done until Miami got upset at Syracuse to give Clemson a shot to win the ACC championship and go to the college football playoff. Here's let's get old Dabo Swinney in here talking about the value of having players with championship game experience at Clemson.
So, I mean, it's nice to have. I mean, it was just 2 years ago. Like I said, we've only not been in this game 1 year, but I mean, they at least have been in it. But Cade was the MVP of the game. I mean, Cole had a good game. I mean, it doesn't matter. You got to. It's all about how you play on the day you play. That's what it's about. So, nothing more than that.
I think the experience matters to a point, and Dabo obviously has won a ton of big games as a head coach. But it is, once you start playing, experience. If SMU throws a couple of haymakers at you in the first quarter, how much is experience going to matter? Maybe some, maybe not at all. I mean, SMU's really good. Their head coach, Rhett Lashley, he talks about this isn't really a home game. This is really a home game, I should say, for Clemson more than a neutral site game in Charlotte. And here's Rhett Lashley talking about playing the ACC championship game basically almost in Clemson's backyard.
Yeah. I mean, obviously Clemson's got a great fan base. They travel well. I think we're going to travel well, but yeah, we're a little farther than Clemson from Charlotte. I don't know. We're used to it. I mean, we've played in great environments this year. We played at Louisville. That was a really good environment. That was 100% against us, right? So we did it last year at Tulane. I mean, so Boston College in the bowl game, it just happens. And so maybe one day we'll play in Dallas for something like that. But we don't talk too much. I mean, just like when we go on the road, we don't make it a bigger deal than it is. And maybe that's why our guys have been successful doing it. If you're a competitor, you want there to be energy in the building. You want there to be an atmosphere in the stadium, and I would think there's definitely going to be that Saturday night. So I would think our guys will be excited, just like I think they will be to play in it.
I get the feeling. I mean, again, Clemson, they played in this game 2 years ago. Dabo has coached a ton of championship level games. I think that's going to matter. I mean, SMU, they're good. They really are. Jennings, their dual-threat quarterback, could do damage to Clemson. Smith, the running back. I mean, SMU is going to look at the fact that Clemson has given up some big-time yards in the run game. And SMU could basically run over Clemson. That absolutely could happen. I just got that feeling that, again, Clemson, they've been there, done that many times. And I just get the feeling they're going to find a way to win this game. If they don't, look, SMU also loves to turn you over. And it's one of those, when you sit there and go, SMU's really good. Blah, 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 blah. And then you go back to, but Clemson's a team that's been in a lot of these. And they have the coach that's coached in a lot of these. And I think that's going to have a value, and Clemson will win the ACC championship and go off to the college football playoff. And yes, do I hope I'm wrong? Sure. Because I know Gamecock fans that will not make them happy. But I just get that feeling. We'll see what happens. ACC championship. And if Clemson does win, it will be interesting to see what goes on with the college football playoff final poll. Halftime show, a Firehouse Up Text the Hour coming up. We will wrap this sucker up and hand it off to Elijah and Jack with the postgame show as Jay is off today right here on The Game. Time for our Firehouse Subtext, the hour, 803-446-100. Talk about Texas on the text line. I got no problem with Texas winning the SEC. They've been really good this year. Top 4 team all season. Last year, they made the college football playoff. The SEC doesn't have those super teams like they've had in previous years with Alabama and Georgia. Nothing to be embarrassed about having Texas come in and win the SEC in their first year. Historically strong program at times, lots of resources. Other teams should have played them better. So there's a texter, because there's a lot of SEC folks who don't want to see Texas win the SEC because they're new. It's their first year. Can't come in here and win this league or the SEC. Well, I think the texter makes a point of there is no super teams like usual in the SEC, like, Nick Saban's Bama squads, Kirby's Georgia teams here recently. I mean, there are good teams, very good teams, just not, the slayers that we've seen the last so many years. And Texas, the SEC, we've talked about it a lot. The SEC handed Texas a pretty easy schedule. They said, Texas, here's your easy schedule. Oklahoma, here's your killer schedule. Welcome to the league. So let's say Texas does win the SEC. Let's do this now before we roll out of here and make room for the post-game show. All right, let's say Oregon wins the Big Ten. I'm just going to go down the list to make it easy. Oregon wins the Big Ten. Texas wins the SEC. Boise State will win the Mountain West. Clemson wins the ACC over SMU. And Arizona State picks up the Big 12 championship. That's 5. You need 7 at-large now. Penn State will be in, Notre Dame will be in, Georgia will be in, Ohio State will be in, Tennessee will be in, Indiana will be in. That leaves room for 1. SMU, if they lose, will fall to 11-2. Alabama's 9-3. It would be between those two squads. We know who gets it, right? Sure. Now, I'm not saying I would put Alabama ahead of SMU. I'll get to that in a minute. But I think the committee will find a way because they want Alabama in the college football playoff. Alabama will bring more TV ratings than SMU. Most people, again, don't know where SMU is. They don't know what an SMU is. And college football people go, yeah, they still have Eric Dickerson. Alabama's a brand, one of the big brands in the sport. And once again, these games are TV shows. This committee will cook up the numbers to find a way to push Alabama ahead of SMU. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they just are just looking at this objectively. I don't think they will. I can totally see Alabama being selected ahead of SMU, and we'll hear about SMU's strength of schedule. Bama's is better. Bama has more wins over top 25. Blah, 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 blah. Just like you heard Bama's resume to jump Miami. Now, honestly, I think metrics like strength of schedule and wins against the top 25 should matter. It really should. Those things should matter as much as, maybe not as much, but they should matter when all things are tight and close. Until you give me a criteria like the NFL does, this is what we look for. Boom, 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 boom. This is how it goes in order. Wins, head-to-head, conference record, whatever you want to put in there. Things like, I believe, strength of schedule should matter. Who did you play to accumulate your record? Yeah, winning is a thing. You win 11 games, that should be a thing. But now, who'd you beat? Who'd you lose to? How tough was your schedule? I think all that stuff should matter. And those ACC schools, just like the Big 12, that hurts them. It just does legitimately. But I just, look, give me my tinfoil hat. It's fine. Again, maybe I might be wrong, and if I am, okay, that's cool. I just think this committee is going to find every way, shape, or form to put Alabama ahead of SMU if SMU loses to Clemson. Now, it's easy if SMU beats Clemson, which obviously they could. Then Alabama's in, Clemson is out. Clemson's only shot is to beat SMU in the ACC championship game. So if you're Alabama, you're like, go Ponies. But if SMU loses, it's going to be a very interesting Sunday, just saying. And we'll see where that goes. But that's the mystery. I think Boise State will win a tight one against UNLV, and they'll be in, and they will get the bye ahead of those Big 12 against either Big 12 school, Arizona State or Iowa State. No matter what Commissioner Yorkman wants to say. Again, It's a TV show, Boise State. More people in this country know Boise State football than they know about Iowa State or Arizona State. If Boise State wins, that's all you need for the resume, and that puts them in. We'll see what happens. It'll be fun. All right, post-game show, Elijah and Jack taking you up till 6. They will have tickets for South Carolina, East Carolina men's basketball this weekend as well. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll talk to you Monday here on The Game in Columbia, Florence, and Myrtle Beach.